Continuing, Canto 4, Chapter 16, Praise of King Prithu by the professional reciters. Just a little bit from yesterday. As you may recall, there were 3 different categories of reciters. And one of those categories is Sutta, S-U-T-A, just like Sutta Goswami. But they're categories of personalities that assist the king, and their service is they sing the praises of the king. Suttas would go into the chamber of the king early morning and do their sutta program. And that's the way the king would wake up, hearing his praises. And Krishna himself performed the function of a sutta for Maharaj Yudhishthira during the and rather that those praises go to waste, propose those praises upon someone who's doing all those nice things. He just redirected that intent of service to a nicer place, a more suitable place. That gives us a hint of one of the options that we may have if somebody praises us, to redirect that praise. Don't say, no, 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 but redirect that praise to a suitable place, maybe back to the person who's offering the praise. It's just a detail. So now the whole chapter is, they didn't hear him very well because they're going to continue for a whole chapter and praise him. But they're not going to praise for things that he has not yet done. They start with praising the foundational principle that he's the personality of Godhead, or empowered incarnation of the personality of Godhead. And then maybe by consulting an astrologer or they start describing things that he's going to do. Not all the things, but some of the things that in principle he will do as a Shaktivesh avatar. And so because of the nature of these praises, I'm just going to read the verses for the whole chapter. It's not too long, 20-something verses. Again, it's Maitreya speaking to Vidura. While King Prithu thus spoke, the humility of his nectarian speeches pleased the reciters very much. Then again, they continued to praise the king highly with exalted prayers, as they had been instructed by the great sages. That's important. They were taking the position of, you're the king, we're honoring you, you're saying stop. The sages are advising us, please continue. With folded palms, we're going to continue praising. And they understand that he's worthy of the praise in part because it doesn't stick to him. That's a good consideration of offering words of appreciation to another devotee. Especially nice is when you know the devotee is not going to stick to them. They're not going to get puffed up and proud and, swagger and all those things. The reciters continued, dear king, here we go. You are a direct incarnation of the Supreme Personality Godhead, Lord Vishnu. And by his causeless mercy, you have descended on this earth. Therefore, it is not possible for us to actually glorify your exalted activities. Although you have appeared through the body of King Vena, even great orators and speakers like Lord Brahma and other demigods cannot exactly describe the glorious activities of your lordship. Although we are unable to glorify you adequately, we nonetheless have a transcendental taste for glorifying your activities. We shall try to glorify you according to the instructions received from the authoritative sages and scholars. So suttas or reciters, they don't create their glorifications. They sing what was given to them by those who they're in the service of, the sages and scholars mentioned here. Whatever we speak, however, is always inadequate and very insignificant, dear King, because you are a direct incarnation of the Supreme Personality Godhead. All your activities are liberal. What does liberal mean? He's not like, as opposed to conservative, means he's very generous in giving and ever laudable. This king, Maharaj Prithu, is the best amongst those who are following religious principles. As such, he will engage everyone in the pursuit of religious principles and give those principles all protection. He will also be a great chastiser of the irreligious and atheistic. This king alone, in his own body, will be able in due course of time to maintain all living entities and keep them in a pleasant condition by manifesting himself as different demigods to perform various departmental activities. Now that's a Vishnu function. In the process of creation, this is Canto 4. In Cantos 2 and 3, there's details about the process of creation. And one part of the process of creation and manifesting demigods. And a detail, there's prototype demigods, and then there's the demigods. Prototype demigods means even before there's creation, there's controllers that don't have a created form yet because there's no creation yet, but they're prototype personalities. They're direct manifestations of Vishnu that are what's behind the demigods that manage things. So those demigods are the ones that are being referred to, that they come directly from Vishnu. And then later there's creation, and Brahma puts the universe together. Brahma creates Prajapatis, and the Prajapatis produce demigods. But behind those demigods, there's the manifestations that come from Vishnu. Thus, he will maintain the upper planetary system by inducing the populace to perform Vedic sacrifices. So Vedic sacrifices are benefiting the persons who are doing the sacrifice, and they're benefiting the upper planetary systems because they're nourishing the needs of the residents of the upper planetary systems and those systems themselves. There's symbiotic relationship with Vedic sacrifice when properly done. And ultimately, Vishnu is propitiated, or he's the bhokta of those sacrifices. Bhoktaram jagatapasam. There's a whole system. And some people kind of block out Vishnu, and they're much more interested in getting stuff. And that's why they do. But there's a higher purpose the bards are describing. In due course of time, he will also maintain this earthly planet by discharging proper rainfall. Now, he doesn't discharge the proper rainfall. Indra does, but Indra does because there's yagyas, and when there's yagyas, Indra dispenses rainfall, and so it's a concentric effort that provides necessities by the Vedic process, which Prithu is going to uphold. This King Prithu will be as powerful as the sun god. And just as the sun god equally distributes his sunshine to everyone, King Prithu will distribute his mercy equally. Similarly, just as the sun god evaporates water for 8 months and during the rainy season returns it profusely, this king will exact taxes from the citizens and return these monies in time of need. And guess what Prabhupada talks about in the purport? The process of taxation today is not like Prithu's taxation. This King Prithu will be very, very kind to all citizens, even though a poor person may trample over the king's head by violating the rules and regulations. The king, out of his causeless mercy, will be forgetful and forgiving. Now, how is he going to be forgetful and forgiving when he's going to be the upholder of Dharma? I'm going to read a little from the purport. As a protector of the world, he will be as tolerant as the earth itself. King Prithu is purport. King Prithu is herein compared to the earthly planet as far as his tolerance is concerned. Now, the earth restricts, that's the next chapter. When people violate, earth restricts. So the king may restrict, but that restricting doesn't mean he's slapping people around or earth is slapping people around. She's restricting because they're misusing. Someone who properly uses, abundance can be given because they're properly use it. Someone that doesn't know how to properly use or is abusive, they have less facility. And that way he's tolerant. Maharaj Prithu is compared to the earthly planet, for even though some citizens might violate the rules and regulations of the state, he would still be tolerant and maintain them with fruits and grains. No, in the position of the maintainer, by providing rain by the process of yajna. So when it rains, because there's performance of yajna, then even law-breaking people get fruits and grains. In that way, he's tolerant. He wants to correct the wrongdoers. When there is no rainfall and the citizens are in great danger due to the scarcity of water, this royal personality of Godhead will be able to supply rains exactly like the heavenly king Indra. He doesn't like push Indra to the side. He just does what's needed so that rains will come. And that's by increasing, and we'll see next chapter, how he does it. Thus, he will very easily be able to protect the citizens from drought. This King Prithu Maharaj, by virtue of his affectionate glances and beautiful moon-like face, which is always smiling with great affection for the citizens, will enhance everyone's peaceful life. Text 10, the reciters continued. No one will be able to understand the policies the king will follow. His activities will also be very confidential and it will be not possible for anyone to know how he will make every activity successful, except he's just manipulating his potencies. That's how. His treasury will always remain unknown to everyone. He will be the reservoir of unlimited glories and good qualities, and his position will be maintained and covered, just as Varuna, the deity of the seas, is covered all around by water. King Prithu was born of the dead body of King Vena, as fire is produced from Arani wood. Thus, King Prithu will always remain just like fire, and his enemies will not be able to approach him. Indeed, he will be unbearable to his enemies, for although staying very near him, they will never be able to approach him, but will have to remain as if far away. No one will be able to overcome the strength of King Prithu. Very poetic way of describing his strength. Text 12. King Prithu will be able to see all the internal and external activities of every one of his citizens. So he's like super soul. No, still, no one will be able to know his system of espionage. Interesting. Espionage. Adyaksha has become espionage. The witness has now become espionage. In the translation. And he himself will remain neutral regarding all matters of glorification or vilification paid to him. He will be exactly like air, the life force within the body, which is exhibited internally and externally, but is always neutral to all affairs. 13. Since this king will always remain on the path of piety, he will be neutral to both his son and the son of his enemy. If the son of his enemy is not punishable, he will not punish him. But if his own son is punishable, he will immediately punish him. Just as the sun god expands his shining rays up to the Arctic region. Now, it's not there in the word for word. Arctic region is not in the word for word. It's there in the verse twice. But the word that's used in the verse is Manasa Achala. And that's the Manasa mountain. But it's in the translation, it's up to the Arctic region. So somehow the Manasa mountain and the Arctic region are used interchangeably. I don't know why. Some people like to know the answer to those why questions, and I don't have the answer to this one. I researched, but I couldn't find the answer. So just as the sun god expands his shining rays up to the Arctic region without, there's an interesting word, impedance, or without impediment. The influence of King Prithu will cover all tracts of land up to the Arctic region and will remain undisturbed as long as he lives. This king will please everyone by his practical activities, and all his citizens remain very satisfied. Because of this, the citizens will take great satisfaction in accepting him as their ruling king. The king will be firmly determined and always situated in truth. He will be a lover of the Brahminical culture and will render all service to old men and give shelter to all surrendered souls, giving respect to all. He will always be merciful to the poor and innocent. 17. The king will respect all women as if they were his own mother, and he will treat his own wife as the other half of his body. He will be just like an affectionate father to his citizens, and he will treat himself as the most obedient servant of the devotees. who always preach the glories of the Lord. 18. The king will consider all embodied living entities as dear to his own self, as dear as his own self. And he will always be increasing the pleasures of his friends. He will intimately associate with liberated persons, and he will be a chastising hand to all impious persons. This king is the master of the three worlds, and he is directly empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is without change. And he is an incarnation of the Supreme, known as a Shakti Vaishavatar, which isn't in the Sanskrit of this verse, but it's implied. So Prabhupada puts, being a liberated soul and completely learned, he sees all material varieties as meaningless because their basic principle is nescience. And we're getting close to finishing the chapter. This king, being uniquely powerful and heroic, will have no competitor. He will travel around the globe on his victorious chariot, holding his invincible bow in his hand and appearing exactly like the sun, which rotates in its own orbit from the south. When the king travels all over the world, other kings as well as the demigods will offer him all kinds of presentations. Their queens will also consider him the original king who carries in his hands the emblems of club and disc, and will sing of his fame, for he will be as reputable as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This king, the protector of the citizens, is an extraordinary king and is equal to the Prajapati demigods. For the living facility of all citizens, he will milk the earth, which is like a cow. Next chapter. Not only that, but he will level the surface of the earth with the pointed end of his bow. Next chapter. Breaking all the hills exactly as King Indra, the heavenly king, breaks mountains with his powerful thunderbolt. When the lion travels in the forest with its tail turned upward, all menial animals hide themselves. Similarly, when King Prithu will travel over his kingdom and vibrate the string of his bow, which is made of the horns of goats and bulls. Interesting, huh? Would you like a bow like that? A bow made of horns of goats and bulls? A bow. You know what a bow is, right? Yeah. Interesting bow. And is irresistible in battle. All demoniac rogues and thieves will hide themselves in all directions. At the source of the river Saraswati, this king will perform 100 sacrifices. Well, actually, it's 99, because Indra gets the heebie-jeebies and doesn't want him to do 100. Known as Ashvamedha. In the course of the last sacrifice, the heavenly king Indra will steal the sacrificial horse. There we go. This King Prithu will meet Sanat Kumar, one of the 4 Kumaras, in the garden of his palace compound. The king will worship him with devotion and will be fortunate to receive instructions by which one can enjoy transcendental bliss. 2 more verses. In this way, when the chivalrous activities of King Prithu come to be known to the people in general, King Prithu will always hear about himself and his uniquely powerful activities. Last verse. No one will be able to disobey the order of Prithu Maharaj. After conquering the world, he will completely eradicate the threefold miseries of the citizens. Fantastic. That means everybody gets liberated. Everybody. Just be under King Prithu and you're in good shape. Then he'll be recognized all over the world At that time, both the Suras and Asuras were undoubtedly glorifying his magnanimous activities. Now, what's the verse that we're supposed to be this? 7. Thank you. I'll read the verse in purport for text 7. This King Prithu will be very, very kind to all citizens. Even though a poor person may trample over the king's head by violating the rules and regulations, the king, out of his causeless mercy, will be forgetful and forgiving. As a protector of the world, he will be as tolerant as the earth itself. And we read this already. Well, half of it. The other half is Prabhupada is scolding the modern rulers that don't behave like that. This is not the case, however, in Kali Yuga, for in Kali Yuga, the kings and heads of state enjoy life at the cost of taxes exacted from the citizens. Such unfair taxation makes the people dishonest, and the people try to hide their income in so many ways. Eventually, the state will not be able to collect taxes and consequently not be able to meet its huge military and administrative expenses. Everything will collapse and there will be chaos and disturbance all over the state. It's not only a prediction, it happens. There are several places in the Bhagavatam that give a very clear picture of the ideal king. For example, in the horoscope foretold for Maharaj Parikshit, similarly, there's a whole chapter describing what he'll do and his quality and his character. And it's instructive for those who are to train administrators what quality and character one requires in order to be a suitable ruler or administrator. Now, these characteristics of Maharaj Parikshit and the characteristics of Prithu, they're superlative. And who can measure up to superlative? Or Ram Raja, because I've been preparing for honoring the appearance of Lord Ramachandra, and there's lengthy descriptions in Prabhupada's purports on those 2 chapters from 9th canto about Ram Raja, and people wish it to be once again like that, but then this would be wishing because there isn't really the qualified person. Because without the qualified Raja, king or leader, one doesn't have those facilities. Srila Prabhupada was speaking to, in Geneva, he was speaking to the World Health Organization that's part of the United Nations, and they have an office or a branch or whatever, and in Geneva. And Srila Prabhupada was, there was a question and answer session, and at the end, that question was raised. how is this going to be possible and, achieve these lofty goals? And Prabhupada's explanation was that one has to follow the footsteps of great souls. And then it was back and forth, yeah, but, yeah, but, yeah, but. And then the person said, you seem to be the one that can inspire people to follow. And Prabhupada's reply was, it was an interesting reply. His reply was, I'm just one person. And the principle still applies. Just see these, European and American young people, and I have confidence that they continue to follow. They're very creative and they're very strong, and it will manifest. I mean, Prabhupada was a visionary, and one might say he was a dreamer, but his dreams, at least with him at the helm, his dreams manifest. And his dreams manifest on the strength of his implicit faith in the holy name. I'll say it again. His dreams manifest on the strength of his implicit faith in the holy name. Of course, faith in his spiritual master and faith in the disciplic succession, faith in the teachings of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. But that's what he was saying to this World Health Organization group. Just take these principles and speak them, live by them, and the desired outcome will follow. And he had faith. One doesn't need to create something. It's already there. Just take that something with faith, speak it, live by it, and the anomalies become adjusted without trying just to adjust anomalies, because material life has that at its heart. It's just making adjustments because of misery, and it doesn't solve the misery. It can mitigate for some time. So qualified leadership is essential. And what to do when there isn't qualified leadership? Well, you have your life and you can be a leader of your life. Apply it yourself within your life. And then you apply it as is reasonable with those who you associate with and interact with. And those that have these characteristics, of course, not on the scale of Prithu or Maharaj Parikshit or Maharaj Ambarish, etc. But we hold as very dear to Krishna those persons that have some of those characteristics, and we try to assist in the mood of pleasing Krishna, etc., etc. That's the answer that Prabhupada gave to this World Health Organization questioner. The potential is there, provided one with faith hears and abides by and propagates. And that's what we do to our capacity. We hear, we abide by, and we propagate. And we're fallible beings. We're not of unlimited strength like Prithu is. So we slip, and those around us also slip, less than perfect. But we just stay the course of hear, abide by, and propagate. And that's the Krishna consciousness movement. Have a clear sense of goal, have a clear sense of self-honesty, have a clear sense of the process to overcome our shortcomings and continue to strive towards the goal and call out for a lot of mercy. Same principle as our founder Acharya. So we don't have the empowerment that he manifested, but the principle applies for each one of us. Jai Shri Radha Nila Madhava Ki Jai. And here we are in the Hare Krishna movement, striving for that standard to our capacity in a cooperative mood amongst the other Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, trying to move in that direction, following in the footsteps. So I'm going to end here. Maybe it'll be a short class this morning. Let's see. There's time for discussion.
It mentioned the suttas glorified the king. I read that there were court jesters that joked about the king. Can you comment on that?
Yeah. Well, kings don't like inimical persons cracking jokes. But kings enjoy when there's a very intelligent person that can say something very wise and funny. The kings would enjoy having powerful wrestlers to have combat with, and not just, whoop the guy, but have the guy whoop him, a strong lashing, Prabhupada's phrase. And they would like. Just like a Brahmana find happiness in austerities. Austerity is the wealth of the Brahmana. The Brahmanas like austerities. For example, when it's time for fasting, Brahmana Vaishnavas look forward to fasting. Not like, oh no. They enjoy it. And their enjoyment is, it's not just the fasting itself, it's everything connected with the fasting. The auspiciousness of the day and the control of the mind and senses, and that's joyful, and increasing hearing and chanting, and that's joyful, and making the connection. So as Brahmanas have that joyfulness, the kings have their joyfulness. And it takes a qualified king to find joyfulness in a court jester. And Prabhupada would tell stories sometimes about Gopal Bhan making jokes with his king. You any Gopal Bhan stories? I heard one recently. Yeah, it goes something like this. The king said to his Gopal Bhan, "What's the difference between you and a donkey?" And Gopal Bhan stood 3 feet from the king and said, 3 feet. The king liked it because he was clever. Someone else? Yes, in the back.
Hare Krishna. You spoke about Prabhupada having faith in the holy name.
Yes.
And everything else, kind of all his dreams manifesting from that faith.
Yes.
I was wondering, how much should we leave up to faith and how much should we endeavor for our goals?
They go together. It's not one without the other. They go together. We're certainly encouraged to be clear about goal and to endeavor for the goal. However, endeavoring for a goal without descending mercy is a fool's errand. It's delusion. Without endeavoring, just having faith, that's incomplete. So both are required. So it's not to say that Prabhupada didn't endeavor. He had an instruction, and to fulfill the instruction, he had faith in the means to achieve and fulfill the instruction. Does that answer? Both are required.
Okay, thank you. I'll meditate on that.
Yes. I can count on you to have a nice question every morning. And this is no exception. Speak slowly, please.
Why was A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada invited to the WHO event?
Why was he?
Invited to the WHO organization by the UN?
Why was he invited to the United Nations?
Yes.
Well, he was invited to the United Nations because the local temple president in Geneva wanted to give Prabhupada an opportunity to address them. So he pulled some strings, I don't know. And that's how it happened. And why was he wanted Prabhupada to give his association to those people.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
In the back, all the way.
When Prabhupada was in Bombay Jew temple, he was supposed to meet Prime Minister Morarji Desai,
Yes.
but he refused to meet him. But here he is going to UNO and giving speech. How it makes a difference?
I think you have to ask Giriraj Maharaj. He's going to be here on Monday. Because he knows about that. He wrote about it in his book, and I don't recall the reason. Does anybody in the room recall reading from his book what was the reason? So I'm going to be giving the class Tuesday, and he'll probably give the class on Wednesday. So come for class on Wednesday and ask him the question.
What is the limit for tolerance?
The meaning
What is the limit for tolerance, individual?
the limit for tolerance. Pain, probably. I mean, even if there's pain, that one should be tolerant. But we all have our limit. So it's what's our threshold? Now, and tolerate doesn't mean that you don't take measures. This is Texas, and it gets hot. So because we're taught to tolerate doesn't mean you don't have a fan and you don't have AC and you don't, you just tolerate. No, there are those, there are tapasvis that when it's winter time, they submerge themselves in ice cold water up to their neck. And it's summertime, they build fires, rings of fire around them and sit in the middle, and they tolerate. So that's not the kind of tolerance that it's being encouraged for us. You don't deliberately go through extremes of creating your tolerance capacity or strengthening. But the limit, I guess, a limit may very well depend upon your Krishna consciousness. And tolerance doesn't mean you don't do something. When you tolerate, you may take some action while tolerating, because it's appropriate. When it's appropriate in service to Krishna, simultaneously I'm tolerating and simultaneously I'm taking some action. Does that help?
Going back to my question, I'm wondering, h- how do we know that our endeavor is, I think you said the word mercy. It's like given mercy or just given blessings. Because, for example, I can make a career endeavor.
For example, you can make a career
I can make
endeavor.
Yes, yeah. But in an attempt to provide, I guess provide for myself financially. But if it's not sanctioned, like how do I know if it's sanctioned? Should I just wait for a career opportunity to come? That's like, or should I try a bunch of different things and see if they're, ordained?
The answer to this kind of question is a combination of things. One of those things is some common sense. And, common sense is hard to find sometimes, but you apply intelligence to assess. And then another factor is flexibility. You're moving, you have a career intention and you start moving in the direction of that career intention, all the while being ready to be flexible, because there may be some doors that you didn't know existed. And when a door opens, you may want to explore what's behind that door because you didn't even know that it existed, if you're flexible. So in other words, Krishna may be indicating something, but Krishna also may be indicating a trap door that's, you don't go through that door. So you have just continue to be introspective and flexible. And then another, along with intelligence, so this common sense, is some good guidance. Really helpful. And good guidance doesn't mean someone that's going to decide for you, just somebody that's wise, been around the block for, a while, and they're very thoughtful, and they can help you look at, what's out there and give you suggestions of what you might consider this and that and the other thing. So you can make a wise decision on, like anything in life, not just a career decision, but there are things that do require decisions and we may not be clear. So what do you do when you're not clear? You can just pause, or you can make your best evaluation, move down the path a little bit and be ready for signals that says that was not the right path. And so you pause because the signal is clear rather than being, a little stubborn and a little flexible. And when something is right, it may take a while to make it clear that it's right. And all the while you're being flexible and, somewhat determined, but at the same time flexible. Any kind of decision, not just career decision. If the goal is to please Krishna, not just get something, and that's the goal, then you may find, I have seen, people go down a path doing something, and that gives them the capacity to do another something that they didn't even have in mind when they started doing something. The other something becomes like accessible when it wasn't even an option that they were considering initially. It's an asset that you carry with you, a skill set and etc. Or meeting somebody or something like that. So it depends on faith in the personality of Godhead and following the right principle that He's to be pleased, not just I get something because I need something. Okay. Okay, I see you. Here comes Bhakti Mike.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
All right, loud and clear. Thank you.
Please accept my humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna.
So we are not the body, and we're not the subtle body, and the mind is a part of the subtle body.
That's right.
So my question is, these thoughts that I have, both good and bad, are they just a reflection of my karma and I shouldn't identify with them?
Say the last part again. The mind is not who I am also. And then?
So the thoughts that I'm receiving are like both good and bad.
Yes.
They're just a reflection of my karma and I shouldn't identify with them.
Yes.
Should you, or can you please help me gain a deeper understanding of
Sure.
this?
You hold those thoughts up to the light of Guru Sadhu Shastra and see what you see. Is this thought coming from just the modes of nature and my karma, or to what degree is this thought connected to Guru Sadhu Shastra? Is it something worthy of me investing in this thought? And if it's not so clear, you may just want to hit the pause button, or you may want to trash it. But then, that's your mechanism. Is it something that's going to enhance, back to his, the goal? There's the long term and then the intermediate and short term. But, the goal is reaching Krishna. And is there value in it? And you can take anything and use that criterion. And another point is, something that's practical. Does this have practical value? And things that have practical value, you may put more weight in, and less weight in something that's just notional and kind of amusing and interesting, but really has no practical value. Anything else? Looking at the clock. You have something.
I was wondering about King Prithu. I've heard him described before as a servant avatar of Krishna. Is that correct?
He's one of the which avatars?
He's a servant of Krishna. He's like a servant.
He's a
Avatar.
jiva.
He's a jiva.
He's a jiva.
Okay. All right.
That answers it?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. This is more like a curious question. As Vaishnavas or devotees, one of our missions is to spread Krishna consciousness.
Yes.
If we see potential in a fellow seeker, maybe you have a story of when you've seen potential in someone, but you knew not to preach,
Yeah.
but allow flowering to
Yes.
happen. This is always curious to me because I meet people and I like to speak on Krishna consciousness, but I don't always know when I should or shouldn't.
Well, this is not the same, but it's, it follows the line of his question about career, but, the application is different, but the principle is the same. How do you make decisions? A lot depends upon your capacity and the relationship with the other person. And you may want to, depends on your personality and the particular space you're in at a particular time, you may want to just invest in the relationship, so that when you do speak something, the person doesn't feel intimidated. But then making that decision requires some thoughtfulness in, I want to maintain my position, my Vaishnava position, which is depending upon some purity that's within me. So therefore, the mission is to, same as before, to receive, to apply, and to give. So I want to make sure I've got my receiver on and my applying what I've received on. And now I'm going out into the public. And so I'm going to be protected because I've done the receiving and applying part. And now I'm looking for inspiration from Super Soul, how to best propagate or share. But I'm protected. I mean, I meant mentioning this because not reaching out has its risks. Reaching out has its risks. So we're reaching out, we should be aware there's risk, because we could be in an unwholesome association and be influenced by unwholesome association. So we have to be conscious. And that's okay. Just be conscious. Don't be intimidated. So then I want to be, I'm a representative of our founder Acharya and disciplic succession. And here I am in the field with people, and I see some qualities and characteristics. How can I be best an instrument of our disciplic succession in sharing? And when that light is on, you're protected. And then how to best attract the other person depends upon you and the relationship and the circumstance. One of the things is you could find something that you have a sense that they're comfortable with, and you go there. And then they understand, you're reasonable and a caring person, and that they'll pick up on that more quickly even than what the message is. I'm saying, achar is more important than prachar. Your character is more important than what you say. And when the character is right and the exchange is right, then you're more likely to get a positive response. I'm thinking, as you were asking your question, I'm speaking, I'm thinking of some examples. And I'm going to give one, and then we're going to end. Once upon a time, I was flying in an airplane. And often I fly Southwest for different reasons. So the policy in Southwest is that you select your own seat. So I like aisle seats. So I was sitting in an aisle seat. And my experience is when the plane fills up, one of the last spots that people want to sit in is next to a Hare Krishna guy. So I have elbow room common, unless the plane fills up. But one flight, it was from New York to Chicago, and right next to me was an undergraduate student from Columbia University, girl. And she sat down, is anyone sitting here? There were other seats, but she wanted to sound, I don't know. Then she immediately started reading her Bible. And I thought, okay, here we go. But that's not what happened. She just started asking nice questions. May I ask you some questions? What's up kind of questions. And so the door was open. So I asked her, what inspired, I forget exactly how the conversation went, but what inspires you to be so absorbed in the Bible? You're a Columbia University student in New York City, and you're a smart young girl. What inspires you? And so I was asking about her, and she shared. And somehow, I forget how it moved into being vegetarian. That topic came up. And she knew the Bible, and she, went through from, from this question to this passage, next question, next passage. And, the way the discussion ended was she was reading something from the New Testament where it said that a person cannot be, book of Matthew, cannot be excluded from the mercy of Christ because of their eating habits. I mean, that's not the language. But I said, of course, you can't be excluded. But you are in a position, because you're intelligent, you have wealth, you have enough to go to Columbia University. So, you can make choices. So let's do this. The spirit of Christianity is, I want to please Christ. So Christ comes before you holding a lamb in his arms. And if you ask him, can I have that lamb because I want to eat the lamb? Are you going to ask that question? And what's he going to say? And, you apply this yardstick that doesn't matter. Then he's going to say, yeah, sure. And you kill that lamb and eat the lamb. You don't have to do that because you have many other options. And if you can live without that, then wouldn't that be a better way to live? Wouldn't that be more pleasing to Christ? Because the essence is pleasing Christ. And she was a little uncomfortable with my response because I put it on her to make the decision. And she said, I don't think it really matters. I said, so the end with just think about it. Think about it, because you're a religious person. You want to please Christ. Think about it. Ask him. Ask Christ. Is this something that you would like? Not just, what you know from the Old and New Testament. The Spirit. So that's where we parted. So I wasn't pushing. I wasn't scolding. So I don't know what the result of that was, after she went on to lead the rest of her life. But if you can add some drops of thoughtfulness to people's life and have them move in a direction that's a wholesome and thoughtful direction, that's good. It depends on the person, the circumstance, and the relationship, what you say. But your character, your achar is most important. Okay, going to end. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Oh, I want to say one thing. A compliments to the flower garland crew. Every time I come to Houston, your team is there. Whoever buys the flowers, you guys are lucky. They really buy nice flowers. And the garlands you make, they're really beautiful. Look at those garlands. Radharani's piece over her hair. I mean, you guys are great.